for Islam.
Islam as you know it did not exist in the way that it is now until the day of this incident in the cave of Hira. So now, Aisha reported this. Okay,
brother. Look, I know this is gonna sound obnoxious, but I've actually I mentioned the Marines part because
look, Muslim, I don't care. I don't care about the Marines. Okay, now you're going on to these complete tangents. I don't care. I'm sorry, brother. Now I have gone into being unkind because you're doing what so many Muslims do. You're trying to appeal to emotion and things that have nothing to do with it. If you are a Marine, then answer the question like a Marine. Did Aisha narrate this, yes or no? Ladies and gentlemen, I was actually honored recently with an invitation to stream with Inspiring Philosophy. Now, in the slight off chance you've been living under a rock and you have no idea who he is a Christian apologist, which for over a decade has been uploading videos and sharing content with the world about Jesus Christ, the Bible, hermeneutics, apologetics. And honestly, he's one of the first people that I started watching when I got into this journey of apologetics, and I admire him greatly. So to know that I actually am privileged to know him personally now is still a little bit surreal to me. And during this live stream, guys, we're speaking to a Muslim who had a little bit of revisionist history when it came to Christian history. And so I became very curious as to see what his standard was when it came to Islamic history. And let's just say that exactly what you expect to happen is exactly what happened. So without further ado, guys, go ahead and enjoy this clip from when I was privileged to be on Inspiring Philosophy's channel. And as usual, let's man up.
Let me bring up Muslim here. How you doing there?
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
Good. So I'm assuming you converted to Islam.
You know, my understanding is reverted, but you'd have the right idea. I didn't start there.
Yeah, I will refuse to say revert because I don't believe that's a thing. But you're fine to say it about yourself. So why did you convert to Islam then, man?
That's a good question because it would also answer why not Christianity. My parents, they didn't raise me. My father died when I was young, and my mom left before I could remember her. So I didn't have, call it hey, here's the example. Because I have 3 young kids, and everything you do is an example. But I didn't have any to draw from. So when I started to ask, what's the truth about this place? What's happening here? It started late in life. I went into the Marines. Don't agree with, call it actions and stuff. And then it's like, well, this needs.
I'm sorry, you say you didn't agree with what?
If you've read the book War's a Racket, just saying that lets you know my 2 cents on how I feel about how we use the military today.
Okay, Muslim. So that's interesting because as a veteran, I would then ask you, and not to get too much off, I just want one answer, and you can keep saying what you were saying. You joined an institution of war.
Yeah.
Knowing that's what you were doing, and then decided after you'd already been through boot and everything else that then you disagreed?
No, this was after I got out.
Okay.
When I'm doing introspection and then reflection, I wasn't no high ranking guy. I think you can kind of tell. I just grew up, no one there to guide me. I went rough and they helped me unrough.
Good.
But then when I'm asking, hey, well, why were we doing X, Y, or Z? Then the reasonings, they're not all virtuous. And I'm not a black and white guy. We absolutely need the military. You need to have folks that are yes, sir. But you need to have folks guiding them. Anyways, without getting off. Oh, good.
Yeah, but why convert to Islam? There must have been some really, because
Yes.
I remember in my early days talking to Muslim missionaries, basically Dawa guys, and these were not like the modern Dawa guys. They're very nice, they're polite, and so I just started asking questions like, "What's the evidence for Islam?" And then they give me evidence, and I'm like, "Huh? That's not evidence." So, what convinced you that Islam is the truth?
This is a great question. When I use the tools that call it the people today, and if I look around, it seems like more atheists than not. They say science, maths, physics, these tools, these will grant you truth that you seek. So I apply them, and uh, what ends up finding is like, okay, Big Bang, who's the banger? That to me is like,
Okay.
oh, there is a creator. This like
Yeah.
makes logical sense.
We agree.
All right. And then now it's like getting the, okay, well, what are the details about the creator? Because I don't have anyone to ask. I don't have dad to ask. I don't have mom. And growing up like criminal, I also am like inherently completely untrustworthy. It's got to be like, hey, give me your evidence, and then I got to make my mind up. I actually am almost not curious about what you have to say. I need to know why and such. Okay, well, the evidence starts to come in. These tools I mentioned. Some of the tools science talks about is when you describe this place, it's like all the possibilities are already here. So, like the creator is he already put all the things that could happen in existence. This also like makes sense of like, all right, that means I'm not here meaningless, because that means there was some sort of design that occurred. It wasn't random. And okay, so this gives me more like, well, Christianity is far closer to me in culture, because this entity, Jesus, and the, these things, when people would talk about them, I recognize them. I'm like, okay, I kind of know what you mean. But then I ask, like, well, why are you saying that name? Because I put Muslim, but my name's Jeremy. I'm like,
Okay.
is that what came out of his mom's mouth? And well, the answer is no. It's like, okay, well, I think I know who you mean then.
Okay,
And
but
then,
like we're not going anywhere. What is the evidence that convinced you of Islam? Were there scientific miracles in
oh,
the
sure.
Quran? Like
Yeah.
what? Because
Oh, I
I'll
see, I
tell you
see.
flat out. If you ask me, if you said, "Hey, Mike, why are you a Christian?" I'll be like, there is a overwhelming historical evidence for the reliability of the Gospels and that Jesus physically rose from the dead and walked out of the tomb. Therefore, Christianity is true. Look, I said that in like 20 seconds.
Mhm.
Why is Islam true? Go.
That's my.
No,
Well,
problem.
come here. That's my daughter. The way it opens up, that's all right, love. That's what it's for. If you win, you can enjoy one with them. Really? Thank you. So if you, the very opening, the way the Quran mentions, well, who is this entity that's you're referring to now? And it'll be the Lord of all worlds. Well, I talked about the science before. All these tools talk about how this place is described as world and worlds and world lines. And then, so to me, it's like, well, this makes sense here, if that makes sense. And
Okay,
No.
so
Go ahead,
yeah,
Maverick.
so no, so Muslim. Here's the thing: you're essentially saying that because one of the opening ayahs of the Quran is talking about a multiplicity of worlds or planets, therefore that immediately made sense to you. Is that kind of the lines that you're on?
yeah, because I went
Okay.
from call it
Now,
atheist to
uh-huh.
like, if I may,
Go
just
ahead.
because when you say also like Christian, I also think, well, right, we call this entity the Christ, and there's only one entity attributable with
Okay,
this, yeah.
Muslim. Let's stay on Islam though. Let's stay on Islam because what I
Oh,
don't
sure.
want is every time we ask you a question, you start going to something else. Let's stick. Let's track the one conversation for now. Okay.
Sure.
Now, you think that because it says worlds, it says okay, this is scientifically plausible because we know that Earth is not the only planet. Is that
Oh,
a fair
negative.
representation of what you're saying, or
Um,
you're saying of all worlds? What when you see the word worlds, what are you
when I
thinking
say
that it's referring
worlds,
to? Uh huh.
right, I think it means all the multiverses. I don't think there's a single multiverse. I think there's many of them, and I think if you were maybe not careful with language enough, you
Okay.
could say what you're doing in the. And this is what when we look at it,
Muslim. Well, hold
like,
on, Muslim. First of all, let me because I am a calculus major with a minor in physics, so I want to correct something very quickly for you. Okay, the theory of multiverses is a theory. It is not an established fact the way that there are other planets. That's why I was asking what you were saying. So if your insinuation is that Muhammad was talking about the multiverse theory, that's not even remotely supported, not only in the English, but in the original Arabic.
You still
Jeremy,
there?
you're breaking up. I think you're gonna have to stop walking around because you're losing a lot of connection. Every time you walk, you're lagging a lot.
Yeah. My goodness. I mean,
Worlds and you know, guys, and IP. I'm sorry. When the Quran says worlds, that it had already been known throughout. I don't even know how many cultures already, way before Muhammad, that there were other planets in space. Many.
but the Quran doesn't even get that right.
Exactly. So that's what I thought he was getting at, but he wasn't even. He's going into a multiverse theory.
Hang on. Let me put this up here just so we can cover it. I'll get my window up here. Here's where I want to go. Logos, Surah 86:18. That Dul Qarnayn, Alexander the Great, guys, reached the place of the setting of the sun. He found it setting in a muddy spring and found a people thereabout.
Yeah.
So according to the Quran, the sun sets in a muddy pool. And if you're like, but that's not, it appeared to be setting in a muddy pool. Sunan Abu Dawud 402. Great. Sahih chain 4002. Allah and his apostle know best. He said the sun sets in a spring of warm water. So,
yeah. And when they try to say it's metaphorical, it can't be, because he provided a location and said, and there were people there. There was a group of people. Well, that obliterates your attempt at stating it's metaphorical. I don't know if he's going to come back up. I don't know if he lagged out.
I don't know, man. We were just getting nowhere. I was getting ready to kick him anyway. I was like, can you make a point? Like, again, if you ask me real quick, why are you a Christian? Boom, Jesus rose from the dead. There's so much evidence to support it. I'm ready to go. Like Muslims, it's like, well, there's a verse and it says this thing and I translate it this way. And wow, how could they have known? My goodness, shut up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Listen, I agree. This is why it's so difficult now to get Muslims to come in and you say, why should I be a Muslim? And then they talk about the majority answers I get now is because the Trinity makes no sense. If you ask me why you should be a Christian, I'm not going to talk about Muhammad. I don't need to talk about anything else but Jesus Christ, right? I don't know.
Let me preview something I have coming out this weekend, because you just reminded me of something I want to show everybody. I'm not going to show the video because I don't want to spoil it.
Right.
But I'm going to show something real fast from this, just so you guys can see.
How many Qurans are there?
How many Qurans are there? Well, this is what's coming, guys. It's one Quran, but mode 1 isn't mode 2, and mode 3 isn't mode, so ready for that.
Oh, man. That's so funny.
Right. Let's bring in Michael. First of all, amazing name. Incredible name. One of the best names ever. There are names, and then there's the name Michael. So you got unmute yourself whenever you're available. Freaking Michael, man. Unmute yourself. Michael, this is your set. You're making us look bad.
Hello?
There you are. I heard you.
I think, hold up 1 second. I accidentally clicked something in your guys' settings. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
We can hear you. You're fine, man.
Where are my earbuds?
I'm going to do a super chat right now. Zut equals kryptonite. Yes, very true.
Yeah, it does.
Thank you, Randy, for gifting 10 Inspiring Philosophy memberships. Much appreciated. By the way, guys, all right, I'm going to mute him now until he figures out his life. Michael, when you're ready, unmute yourself. By the way, guys, at the end of the stream, it's going to... Yeah,
I'm sure you guys can hear me, but I can't hear you guys. When I unmuted myself, it gave me the option to go to speakerphones or default, and I think I picked the wrong one. If anything, let me back out, and please let me back in when you can.
Yeah, I will. I'll do super chats while you do that. So just come back out, come back in, Michael. Refresh the page. You should be good. By the way, guys, Brother Maverick is linked in the title of this video. Go subscribe to him now. There's 900 of you watching right now. And if you don't, the terrorists will win. So go subscribe to him. He's going to be live on his channel as soon as this is over. It's going to redirect to his. So make sure you're all ready for that. So be sure to subscribe. All right, Michael, are you there? Son of a biscuit-eating bulldog. Thank you for the answer. A video on it would be awesome. What answer did I give? I don't even remember. Oh, this, on evolution? Yeah. I'll try to figure that out.
Oh,
Still waiting for
okay.
you and Redeem Zoomer to have a macroevolution debate with Donnie and Matt from Standing for Truth. That's not what I'm really focusing on right now. I don't really want
Oof,
to
yeah.
dedicate time to that. I think we beat that dead horse. Is it plausible to say that pride was the first sin to enter the world? Thank you for your amazing work. God bless. Yes, I would say it's the first sin to enter the world. Yes. All right, let's see if Michael can come up now. All right, Michael, I see your feet. They look nice.
You got that pedicure.
I'm trying to shut off the camera.
Well, it's not working.
Yeah, I know it's not. This sucks.
Well, you look beautiful.
All
Don't
right.
worry about it.
Thank you. All right. So recently I got in an argument with a famous atheist online. I called into one of his shows. One of my first times doing that. This is about my second time.
Michael, what do you believe, brother? What is your worldview?
I am an atheist, but I'm also pro-religion, particularly pro-Christian.
Okay.
So I called into his show because the topic was, do we need God? And I personally believe society does need God. I have my own stances on God, but I don't care to get into that right now. I'm particularly asking for advice from you gentlemen. IP, I've watched a ton of your debates, particularly on Islam. Love your stance on it. And Brother Maverick, this is my first time ever viewing you, and I think you're doing a stellar job right now in this live stream.
Thank you, brother.
So,
I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, sir. So I'm here for some advice on how to deal with atheists, at least in convincing them not to be so malice towards religion. If you guys can entertain that, it's in a stance, not from necessarily a Christian stance, but from separate from a religious stance.
Go ahead, Maverick, and then I'll follow up.
Separate from a religious stance? So you want to teach atheists not to be so callous towards God in general, or the God of Christianity? Because that's separate conversations.
To be not so malice towards, if we can go with Christianity, and the reason why I'll go with Christianity is because I'm a Westerner, just like you guys. I come from a society that the foundation of the society is Christian values. Mm-hmm. So I would rather an argument for Christianity through a separate from a religious argument, just to help me out, because I got a lot of people in my life and who aren't so pro-religious. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that the approach that I've always seen from Inspiring Philosophy is a good one, where you kind of approach it from an intellectual standpoint of history, right? You approach it with the stance of probability, right? Very common questions like, why would the apostles be willing to suffer such gruesome deaths as they did to spread the word of God, to spread Jesus as God, right? You look at the hostile attestations outside of the Bible, people like Tacitus, people like Josephus, who couldn't have cared less about Jesus Christ, but still were very clear about what was going on in their culture. But you also have to remember, Michael, that there is actually something going on at the spiritual level with people like that. Okay. IP, if I could if I could share my screen with you for a second, let me see where I got it here. Entire screen right here. I have it up, so I'll share that. I always try to repeat this to myself, and I'll read it real quick. This is 1 Corinthians 2, verses 13 and 14. And we impart this in words not taught by human wisdom, but taught by the Spirit, interpreting spiritual truths to those who are spiritual. The natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he is not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. Now, that's very important, Michael, because you have to remember that God is making it clear to you that these people literally do not have the ability to understand the things of God because they don't have the spiritual discernment to do so. So prayer is a huge thing, even though I know that's not something you'll probably be doing, but to anyone who's listening, right? IP, if I could for like 60 seconds, I used to fall into this category. I was never an atheist. I was one of these self-proclaimed Christians who I swore up and down I was really a Christian, and I didn't need church. I didn't need God. I didn't need to read the Bible. I'm a good person. I used to say this. I used to actually say this. I'm a good person. I don't bother people. I don't do things to people. I have a job where I help people, right? I'm not stealing. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. So I'm a good person. I didn't know that the Bible said that my righteous deeds are but menstrual rags in compared to the holiness of God, right? So the only way that you could really teach these guys to view Christianity and the God of the Bible as one who is worth following is by, like I said earlier, through the historical evidence that shows through all probability that Jesus Christ is God, right? And with a lot of prayer, brother, a lot of prayer. My wife prayed for me for over 10 years. 10 years. And I finally one day felt the Holy Spirit. It's going to be a combination of things, right? You're going to have to know the history. You're going to have to present to them who Jesus Christ really was. You're going to have to show them what the early church said. You're going to have to show them the accounts. You're going to have to show them the hostile attestations. But more than that, you're going to have to lead by example, showing them Christ in your own life and through constant prayer, man. There is no cookie cutter answer because no two atheists are the same. No two people are the same. Does that make sense?
I appreciate your answer. Brother. I thank you very much. It's very inspiring.
Here's what I would say. Just watch this video here. Secularism is destroying the world. And then use the points in there to show that, yeah, secularism actually leads to... It's on the channel. Yeah, I posted 8 months ago. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty... I go over a bunch of actual data sets showing that there are issues in secularism that Christianity fixes in our society, like declining birth rates, charity, authoritarianism. So Christianity is vital for the West, is my point in this video.
Well, you know what? I'd appreciate that video because I have been watching a lot of stuff on secular humanism, and I have my disagreements on that. The person who I actually had a debate with or called into their show, however, is a pretty popular secular atheist. And my stance essentially was I'm taking the stance that religion is overall positive for society, arguably because society developed with religion. Society may have not even developed without religion, without the concept of God. We might not have the technology we have nowadays. It's what brought us out of the Stone Age, in my opinion. And I was making the stance that if society is cohesive in one or a dominant religious framework, instead of being diverse in the religious framework, then society would be more cohesive. People would get along together because they would have a shared moral value system. And essentially, this famous secular humanist, their argument against me was that I was arrogant, that I was pompous, saying that other people are too stupid to figure out morality, when that's not what I was saying. I literally made the argument to him that most people in their life don't have time to think about philosophy or their moral values. So it's easy to give a moral guideline, such as a religion. Particularly, I would suggest the Bible to most people. I would say, hey, go straight to the Bible. That's the best moral guideline.
Well, we appreciate you coming, Michael. We're going to talk to people about the topic, but thanks for coming. Hope that helps. And let's bring back up Muslim. You're back. Jeremy, is that you? Jeremy?
Hey, how's it going?
There you are. Okay, good to hear you.
Oh, my lantern. No, it's okay. That was like, oh, sorry, my phone died. I was like waiting out in the sun for a while. I'm sure you saw. I was just getting baked out there. Sorry
you were talking earlier about how the Quran gets scientific facts right, is what you were saying, correct?
No, that's not what I said. I simply stated that when I read that, I was like, wait, I've heard this before, because I hadn't read the Bible or any of these things yet. You see what I mean?
Here's my question. If I could show you a scientific error in the Quran, in the Sunnah, would that be a point against the truth of Islam?
Yes, but the same thing. It actually, I have something to perhaps share with you that can answer like a lot of different things. It's my own personal work. It's not like, oh, here's this surah, or because those Sunnah.
I honestly would just rather focus on what the Quran teaches. Sure, because that should be the basis of your faith. But let me go to this. So I'm going to just read you. This is Surah 37. This is what Allah is saying. Indeed, we have adorned the lowest heaven with the stars for decoration. Now, what are they for? What are the stars for? For giving light, heat? No, for protection from every rebellious devil. They cannot listen to the highest assembly, for they are pelted from every side, driven away, and they will suffer an everlasting torment. But whoever manages to steadily eavesdrop is pursued by a piercing flame. In other words, the Quran thinks that stars protect demons from getting into heaven to hear the plans of Allah. And if he catches them, he throws a shooting star at them. This is what the commentators say on eavesdropping demons. That's scientifically inaccurate. That's not what stars are for. Therefore, the Quran is an error.
When I go and look and ask, well, what are these scientific notions? Where did you even get the notion of star? Right? You're saying, hey, look, it's saying something about a star. And then I'm like, well, what is our basis of understanding of star? And I see the brother is like, well, think brother, if I may, were you?
I'm just listening because I really am having a hard time tracking what your train of thought is here.
That makes sense. That really does, because I feel like our setup got so kind of shuffled around that now we're almost like trying to touch different points.
Okay, so let's no, we're not. That's the thing, Muslim. So what I would like for you to do is focus primarily on what IP just said to you, right? The Quran made a claim, yes. Right? It made a claim. That's it. You stated that if you agreed, if Mike could show you that this is a scientific inaccuracy, then you would see that the Quran is not actually correct, that it is not.
No,
perfect,
he said a point against it.
Okay, so it's a point against it. Now, in your paradigm, if the Quran has even one false statement in it, it can no longer be the word of God, yes or no?
I'd agree with that, sure.
Oh, well, here's your false statement. And this is just one of, I would say, thousands.
English is also not my only language. This is something I've discovered learning more than one. Is when it sounds like I'm being silly and picking a hair that doesn't belong there, saying, where's our notion of star come? Well,
what do you think stars are?
Right.
This is going to sound like I'm not answering your question, but give me a moment, because I think you have children too. And some things, if I may, when I go to give the definition and I look up the definition of a word, I was looking up inflation the other day. I have a lot of dictionaries. At a certain dictionary point, the definition of that word changed. So what I'm saying is stars didn't have that. Stars have been the same since we've been talking about them. Okay. However, when you ask for the descriptions of these objects, they exert a gravitational force. And I start to ask, well, what is this gravity notion? Once again, it seems like I'm pulling a weird hair, but imagine I'm a child, because this is actually how I came to understand there was a creator, period. Because all of these notions,
Jeremy, let me just say, I believe in a creator too. We both believe in a creator. You don't have to convince me there's a creator. Convince me Islam is true. I'll be honest, I'm just getting frustrated, man.
Yeah.
Again, if you came to me and you said, Michael, why is Christianity true? I would immediately go on a 5-minute explanation for why Jesus rose from the dead.
Yeah.
Do that with Islam, or I don't want to have this conversation.
You haven't even given me a minute and a half, really. You said 5 minutes for you.
Well,
I can do it in a minute.
Yeah. Well, you just said 5, and then you're kind of getting like, I don't know.
We were talking to you in your yard. We're talking to you now, and you've just explained to me, I became convinced there was a creator. So this has been more than 5 minutes. We've been talking to you for a good 20 minutes on and off. How are you not going straight to the evidence for Islam?
Because that is the evidence. When I opened it up, the very beginning, because those notions I talk about, if we ask what this whole even thing about the star, we can stay on that point. It just give me hang in there, y'all. Because the brothers. Listening. Thank you. If you ask for those elements, like, well, what do you even mean the stars? Because you're asking me, like, do you think the stars are X, Y, or Z? I'll be frank. I went to the Marines for a reason. They don't send the smart guys there, and the smart ones don't go there. When someone is explaining to me the elements there, just like the words I mentioned in the dictionary that changed, they say a word gravity. Well, what do you mean by this thing? I remember it in school, but I couldn't describe it. That word has changed. So the very the very elements describing the object change over time. So when I'm looking for the truth, Christianity, then I'm like, okay, where is the original text? Because that's what I want to refer to. And then when I look for the surviving one, there isn't a surviving complete one, if that makes sense.
That is false. There is a surviving complete. There's several surviving complete manuscripts.
Right.
What's the name of them? I'm early in
Codex
my journey.
Sinaiticus, Codex Vaticanus.
But it's
Codex
not complete,
Andri-
brother. That's
Alexandrinus.
not complete.
They are complete. Codex Sinaiticus contains the complete New Testament. So does Codex Vaticanus. So does Codex Bezier. So does Codex Alexandrinus.
No, brother, they don't.
Right. Yes,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
they do, man.
And Muslim,
We
you know
have a
what I
complete New
find?
Testament.
I find this interesting because I was literally talking to IP about this right before we went live. The question he asked you was, why Islam? And you ended up back in Christianity again. Christian polemics does not equal Muslim apologetics.
Oh,
And I find it interesting that you
the worlds
continue to go
alone,
that way.
it was enough for me to start considering Islam.
Okay.
Look at
more
what's on the
seriously
screen.
than the
Can you
rest.
look what's on the screen for me? Yes, Codex
Yes.
Sinaiticus contains the entire New Testament.
And then you're the philosopher. We would say, well, the appeal to authority is now we are placing our faith in Google.
Oh my Lord!
No,
in heaven.
my-
Okay,
oh.
that's so disingenuous. It's ridiculous. Here, you know what, Muslim?
Correct me if
I'm
I'm
going to
wrong.
take you. I'm going to take you a different direction because when you guys search something, right, and it agrees with your worldview, you have absolutely no problem whatsoever with the internet, right? You have no problem whatsoever when you hear these arguments on Discord, when you hear them on YouTube. You have no problem with the internet. I promise and guarantee you that the fallacious information that you presented about Codex Sinaiticus was derived from someone that you saw or heard or read on the internet.
I don't trust Google. And then
Okay,
you say,
that's fine. You don't have
you say,
to.
this is my authority. I'm
Okay.
placing my faith in the creator in Google.
Okay, Muslim.
You see what
so
I mean?
you believe here? Let's not trust the internet. Okay. Well, only insofar as that.
No,
a
I don't
lot
trust
of these.
it.
Okay,
I'll
great.
be honest.
No problem. So
That's why I only spoke logically about the creator. They say there's a beginning.
Muslim,
Yeah,
Muslim,
a big bang.
Muslim. So let's
So
talk about
things happen.
Muslim.
You know what I'm saying?
Let's
Okay.
talk about.
How do you know a
logic
Big
then.
Bang happened? You use Google?
No,
Okay,
That
now
was
you know a
something
Big
that-
Bang happened.
that was something spoken
How
to
do you
me
know
in the
big-
classroom.
Oh, okay, so you got it from an authority, kind of like, what you just accused me of doing.
No, because
Yes,
you
That's
asked
exactly what happened.
you asked me where I got it from.
Yeah.
But you didn't ask me if I believe that.
Okay.
That's where I heard it from. I
That's where
didn't
you
make
heard
the
it from.
story.
Okay, Muslim.
Well,
Here,
if I didn't make the
Muslim,
stories
let's-
up.
here,
I didn't make the
that's
stories up.
Muslim.
So
That's
that's what I mean
fine.
by I got it from. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay, that's fine. Listen,
Does
what
that
I
make
want to
sense?
do now is I want to engage in a back and forth dialogue with you, and I want to see if your standards for logic are actually a standard, okay, or if it's only a double standard when applied to Christian history. All right, so let's talk about that. As a Muslim, who do you believe? You believe Muhammad's a prophet? Let's start there. Do you believe Muhammad is a true prophet of God?
Yes.
Okay. How did Muhammad receive his revelation?
To my understanding, through Gabriel.
Excellent, right? And it all started when?
It was. I don't remember. I don't recall the starting point, but I recall that it was not all at once, and it was throughout.
Okay, so let's talk about the starting point, because the starting point would be the foundational event, which
Sure.
ended up with Islam as a religion, right? Mike, I'm going to share my screen with you again.
Go for it.
Yeah, because this is it's kind of crazy. So I want to see if his standard is legitimate. Now, the Cave of Hira was the first incident. Okay. Did the angel Gabriel tell Muhammad that it was him, that he introduced himself, the way that he did to Daniel and Zechariah and Mary? Did he do this for Muhammad?
To my understanding, he did it in the first time as like a form of sound.
So that's incorrect. He actually never did it. When this incident transpired, he ran home to Khadijah. All right.
Well,
We
these
can
are
skip all the
hadiths. These aren't the
I know,
Quran.
yeah. Well, here. So you see this right here. You know who narrated this?
Well, Yeah.
Do you know who narrated this? Who narrated that?
They report that. That's report me is like, if I may, brother, this is like when if you bring up the Bible, I'm gonna say that's okay. I understand your point, but this isn't the Quran.
Muslim, can you just answer the question, please? Who narrated this?
I told you it's reported that it's Aisha.
Thank
If
you.
you're not going to answer the question, we're not going to have a conversation.
Right,
I literally
right.
said that.
Okay, so great. So like I said, you want to have a logical conversation, we're going to have a logical conversation. You don't just get to discredit whatever you're looking at the moment you think it's going to be.
Oh, no, it's not. I'm not
devastating to your narrative.
If
Okay.
I think
So if Aisha narrated this, then who gave her the account?
no, this is reported.
Dude,
Hold on,
Aisha, listen. If
brother.
Aisha
This is like
narrated this,
this is like someone saying that stories about Jesus are the Bible. These reports are reports.
Muslim, I am not, brother. I at no point stated that this is the Quran. I have made it clear from the beginning that we are discussing the foundational event of Islam. At no point did I say this was the Quran. The Quran is subsequent to this and all based on this initiating event. Okay? I never said this was the Quran.
I would disagree.
I want you
I would
to
say the Big Bang was the initiating event for the Quran and all other things.
Okay, the Big Bang was the initiating event for all of creation. Congratulations. We're talking specifically about Islam because Islam as you know it did not exist.
For Islam.
Islam as you know it did not exist in the way that it is now until the day of this incident in the cave of Hira. So now, Aisha reported this.
Brother, look, I know this is going to sound obnoxious, but I've actually I mentioned the Marines part because
look, Muslim, I don't care. I don't care about the Marines. Okay, now you're going on to these complete tangents. I don't care. I'm sorry, brother. Now I have gone into being unkind because you're doing what so many Muslims do. You're trying to appeal to emotion and things that have nothing to do with it. If you are a Marine, then answer the question like a Marine. Did Aisha narrate this, yes or no?
I can't give you a yes or no. I wasn't there.
All right, have a good day then.
Yeah.
Have a good day, man.
Unreal, man.
Oh my God. I'm done. Like at some point, I was done like 30 minutes ago. I was going to give you a chance.
I agree. The thing about it is that the minute he started mentioning the historicity of our codices, okay, you believed what you wanted to believe about Codex Sinaiticus, and then you absolutely lied and said that they weren't complete, but all of the manuscripts were present in Codex Sinaiticus. That's common knowledge, you know? So then when you want to go to the history of their own religion, all of a sudden they don't want to talk about, well, it's just reported. Well, guess what, brother? That false information that you tried to give us was reported by someone as well, but you believed it, right?
Yep.
So
here's the thing. Also, commentating on the hadith that you were talking about the appearance in the cave, Ibn al-Jawazi says, at the beginning, he, that is Muhammad, feared that what he was seeing might be from Satan because falsehood can be confused with truth.
Yep.
The only person who was an eyewitness to what Muhammad saw in the cave was Muhammad. And his first inclination is that this was Satan or it's a jinn, it's a demon, something like that. It was later people who were not there that convinced him it was an angel.
And the person who gave him an identification was not there either.
Exactly.
And the identification he gave was not Gabriel. Wadaka said it is the Namus that God sent down to Musa. Ladies and gentlemen, Musa never interacted with Gabriel. Never. As a matter of fact, I heard one of the worst arguments for that last night when I was having a conversation with Abu Nuri again. And he, you're not going to believe this, attempted to say that because Gabriel in Luke 1:19 stated that he stands in the presence of God, he correlated that to the angel of the presence of God being Gabriel in the book of Jubilee, and then stated because the angel of the presence is known as the angel of the presence of God, and Gabriel said, now mind you guys, the book of Jubilee is not one of our canonical books, and then says Gabriel says that he stands present in the presence of God. Therefore, this is, mind you, made no correlation to the angel of the presence being the one that showed himself to Muhammad. Okay. And then on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to the book of Luke and say, I stood in his presence, well, the book of Revelation talks about angels standing in God's presence. The book of Daniel talks about angels standing in God's presence in the thousands. That doesn't mean that every angel standing in his presence is Gabriel, and nor does the Book of Jubilee ever even name Gabriel by name. So it's these arguments can get interesting, but they're desperate at best.
Yep, that's a good way to put it.